A standardized wire gauge system for round, solid, non-ferrous, electrically conducting wire sizes is called the American Wire Gauge, AWG. The physical size of the wire decreases with increasing AWG or wire gauge. The smallest and largest AWG sizes are 40 and 0000/0, respectively. The wire diameter doubles for every 6 gauge decrease in AWG, while the cross-sectional area doubles for every 3 gauge decrease. Note, there are 3 separate systems: WNM wire gauge, US steel wire gauge, and music wire gauge. The skin effect is the propensity of an alternating current, AC, to disperse within a conductor so that the current density close to the conductor's surface is higher than that at its core. In other words, the conductor's skin is where the electric current likes to flow. The conductor's effective resistance rises with the frequency of the current due to the skin effect. The highest frequency displayed corresponds to 100% skin depth, or no skin effects. When the typical load current is exceeded in an electrical circuit, an overcurrent condition results. A short circuit or overload situation may result in an overcurrent issue. When there is a short circuit, the current avoids traveling along the usual path. A partial short can raise the current level, but depending on the ratings of the circuit's components, it might or might not result in damage. But in the case of a dead short, the load's resistance will be entirely cut off from the regular current route. An overload circumstance may also result in an overcurrent problem. Think about a scenario where too many loads are connected to a single power supply, for instance. Even with each of these loads drawing its typical amount of current, the total current may still be greater than the source's rated value. A transient overload results in a modest temperature increase and little to no impact on the equipment or conductors. But persistent overloads must be avoided because they might be harmful. In contrast to short circuits, overloads do not result in a sudden arc, and the system may function normally even if the overload is not removed right away. However, if an overload continues for a long time, the equipment and conductors could become too hot and catch fire. A fuse or circuit breaker's resistance is extremely low and typically makes up a small portion of the overall circuit resistance. It merely performs the role of a conductor while a circuit is in regular functioning. Circuit breakers and fuses are both linked in series with the circuit they are intended to protect. These overcurrent protection devices should typically be mounted at the beginning of a branch circuit, as shown, or wherever the conductor being protected receives its power. Fuses will blow or circuit breakers will trip in an overcurrent condition. Despite the fact that these devices guard the circuit against overcurrent situations, they just open the circuit and cut off the electrical supply. Normally, they are unable to solve the issue. For this reason, before changing a fuse or resetting a circuit breaker, we must identify and address the issue. An overcurrent protection device, OCPD, is a piece of electrical machinery that stops the flow of current to safeguard service, feeder, and branch circuits and equipment from excessive current. To protect equipment, a circuit inside the equipment, or the wiring of the equipment, overcurrent protection merely refers to the use of a fuse, breaker, or fusible link. Because they resemble one another in various ways, these phrases are frequently used synonymously. Although they might be sized to protect just one part of the machine, breakers or fuses are typically employed to safeguard the entire equipment from excessive current. This gives optional safety for parts like the transformer or circuit board, in addition to providing overcurrent protection for the device as a whole. The heating system should have easy access to the proper amperage and voltage rated breakers or fuses. The breaker typically matches the maximum amperage specified on the nameplate of the electrical heating unit in terms of rating. To apply the proper size breaker, the installing contractor may need to examine the installation's amperage values. It may be necessary to specify a breaker with an amperage that is 115% of the unit's minimum amperage. It is not advisable to utilize a breaker that is too large. A breaker is made to safeguard the wiring and equipment. In the event of an overcurrent draw, a breaker with too much amperage won't shut off the power supply. If the breaker is too small, the power will be cut off before the device can draw its maximum amount of electricity. A fusible link and an electrical heating element are frequently linked in series. When either high amperage or high heat is encountered, the link is supposed to open. If the fusible link is open, it cannot be reset and must be changed. Manufacturer information is printed on the silver cylinder. Temperature and amperage ratings could be among the details. The cylinder-shaped object features a tapering end and a square end. Depending on the color of the material used to make it, the taper may be either black or red. To check if a link is open, measure its resistance. It should show a resistance of 0 ohms. The greatest amount of current that a fuse or circuit breaker can handle without blowing or tripping is indicated by the continuous current rating that is marked on the device. The circuit's full load current must be as nearly matched to the current rating as possible. For instance, tiny fuses can easily blow, whereas big fuses could not offer enough safety. The highest voltage at which a fuse or circuit breaker is intended to reliably interrupt the current is indicated by its voltage rating. The device's capacity to inhibit internal arcing, which happens when a current is opened under overcurrent or short circuit conditions, is specifically determined by the voltage rating. The voltage rating needs to be at least as high as the circuit voltage or higher. It can go up, but it can never go down. Low-voltage circuit breakers safeguard electrical circuits that are powered by less than 1000 V. The maximum current that a fuse or circuit breaker can safely interrupt is known as the interrupting current rating, also known as short circuit rating. A protective device may actually rupture, resulting in further harm if a fault current surpasses a level that it cannot interrupt. The rating for interrupting current is much higher than that for continuous current and should be far higher than the highest current that the power source is capable of supplying. 10,000 A, 50,000 A, and 100,000 A are typical interrupt ratings. How much current the overcurrent protection device can let through the system is measured by its current limiting capabilities. Devices that limit current operate in less than a half cycle. A current-limiting fuse, for instance, will begin to melt after 1/4 of an AC wave and will clear the circuit after 1/2 of the wave. The time it takes for a protective device to operate under fault current or overload conditions is referred to as the device's time current characteristics or response time. Depending on the quantity of the overload current, fast-acting rated protection devices may react to an overload in a fraction of a second, whereas normal versions may take 1 to 30 seconds. Fast-acting fuses are used to safeguard extremely delicate electronic circuits that have a constant flow of current because they are very sensitive to increased current. Every electric circuit must have circuit over current protection. If the voltage and current levels of an electric circuit exceed the safe limits for which they were built, the circuit may be harmed or even destroyed. Fuse and circuit breakers are typically created to safeguard people, conductors, and machinery. Both work by interrupting or opening the circuit as soon as possible before damage can happen.